A couple of months ago now, I ranked every League 2 club stadium from best to worst, and in today's video we're going to be doing the exact same thing but for League 1 stadiums. Now obviously there is some really nice stadiums at that level, and there is also some absolute stinkers which belong down in non-league. If you do want to enjoy, make sure to like, comment and subscribe. 150 likes as always would be massively appreciated. Let's get straight into it. Obviously it's just my opinion at the end of the day. I might have a different opinion on your club's stadium that you don't really agree with, or my ranking of how I'm going to do this you might not necessarily agree with. That's the beauty about football, isn't it? It's all about opinions, and this is just my opinion as well, so don't take it too seriously. And obviously, as you can tell, I am a Bradford City fan, so I don't really have any bias towards any of these clubs or against any of these clubs, so I'll try and do my ranking as fair as possible. I think I've been to every stadium in League 1 apart from Lincoln and Reading at least once. I think I've been to, obviously, some a fair few, like so Blackpool I've been to a few times, Bolton I've been a fair few, Stockport, Mansfield, them sort of teams, but I think I'll be able to give a good enough judgment on these club stadiums. We'll start out firstly then with Barnsley FC, and I feel like this is a good one to go straight into the good category. 3 pretty tidy stands for the level, 1 stand which is to kind of the right of the away, which I think they could do with modernising that, but they don't really need to, as obviously they're not consistently selling out. You get a massive away allocation at Barnsley. I think you can get about, what, 5,500 I think in that away, and I think the only time I've been to Barnsley, no, sorry, I've been there twice. One was in the EFL Trophy, but when I went there in the league, I think Bradford took about 4,000 or 5,000, something like that. They beat us 3-0 and we got relegated that season, but on the whole, Barnsley Stadium is pretty nice, so I'm going to stick them in the good category. Next up then, we will go to Bristol Rovers, and I think I'm going to have to put them in the stinker category. They don't really need a better stadium than the one that they have got, but the last time that I went there, they have terracing behind both goals. You also have a terracing home stand on the side, which I thought is very strange, especially for a club who's obviously been in the Championship. I know they don't need to get a massive 30,000 seater for like some sort of modern bowl, but I just don't think, compared to some of the other stadiums at this level, it's one that you really look forward to in terms of Burton away, in my opinion. Next up then, we'll go to Shrewsbury Town. Quite a modern stadium, if memory serves me correct. Haven't been there for quite a while, but I think I've been there maybe 2-3 times, something like that, and it's a pretty nice stadium on the whole. I think it's not big enough to go into that good category, but for the level, I think it's, you know, very nice, quite modern. It's not a bowl. I think it's just it's an average stadium, but I think it's a nice average stadium, if that does make sense. Maybe if it was 8,000 seats bigger, it might make it into the good category, because I think the standard of them stadiums in good will be a little bit higher, but I think Shrewsbury Stadium is pretty nice, in all honesty. Next up then, we will go to Blackpool, and I would say it's very similar to Barnsley in the sense of it's got 3 pretty nice stands and 1 stand which is normally the away end now, I believe, where you could maybe do a bit of work with that. Obviously, you've got the 3 home stands connected. The last couple of times I've been to Blackpool was when I think the north stand was actually the away end, and the side stand, which is now the away end, was closed. So I haven't been to Blackpool for quite a while. I don't think I've got many good memories there. We lost 5-0 once, and Nathan Delfonso scored a hat-trick. We were 2-0 up with 5 minutes to go and ended up losing 3-2. So I've not got many good memories of Blackpool Stadium. I was certainly watching football matches there. I know the area around the stadium isn't particularly nice, but you'll probably get that with a lot of clubs. So I'll stick Blackpool in the good category. Next up then, we go to Mansfield Town. Now, Mansfield fans, you know that we've got quite a good connection here, but in terms of the standard of stadium in League 1, it is a poor stadium, isn't it? There's only 3 that are open. One of them down the side has been used to kind of promote businesses and all that sort of stuff, and I know they're trying to reopen that up and get it redone and all that sort of stuff. And listen, there's nothing against Mansfield, you all know that I really like you as a football club, but in terms of a stadium, for the standard of it, there is certainly a lot better there, in my opinion. But I think the away end's quite nice. You know, it's just kind of very average for League 2, so that probably averages out about poor in League 1, especially when you've only got 3 stands that are open. There's only so high that I can put you with that information. Next up then, we will go to Bolton Wanderers, and I think they're going to be the first team to go in that unreal category. I've been a fair few times now to Bolton. I don't think I've seen Bradford City play there in a league match. Once in the EFL Trophy, I went to their clash against Stockport County in the FA Cup a couple of seasons ago, and it's just a very, very nice stadium, in my opinion. I've not seen it where all the stands are open. Quite a lot of times the upper tiers are closed. I don't know if that's normal for league games, but for the standard of a League One stadium, I think it's right up there for me, in my opinion. I really do like the Bolton Wanderers stadium. It's quite modern on the inside and out. You've got, you know, good transport links and all that sort of stuff, but I just think it is quite a nice modern stadium, and it's not a soulless bowl as well. Next up then, we will go to Stevenage FC. I'm probably going to put them in the poor category. Obviously, they've got terracing down the side, which I'm not a big fan of. Personally, I think the rest of their stadium, it's just pretty average. There's nothing really too much to say about it, but because they have got that one stand which is terracing, I would much rather have seating there. If it was seating there, you could maybe squeeze the bottom end of average, but I'm going to put them in poor for now. I'll probably still put them above Mansfield because they do have 4 fully operating stands, but it's not really one that you massively look forward to, is Stevenage away. Next up then, we will go to Rotherham United. I think I'm going to put them in average, probably the top end of average. It's a very similar stadium to Doncaster Rovers, which I don't know, because they're Yorkshire rivals, or South Yorkshire rivals, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Obviously, I went there a couple of weeks ago when Bradford City played in the FL Trophy. I've been to Rotherham Stadium quite a lot, though. I went when they played Scunthorpe in the playoffs all them years ago. I went when, I think, they beat us maybe 2 or 3-0 back in 2017. So it's been quite a while up until recently since I've been to the Rotherham Stadium, but the away end where we've been put in was the same stand as the home fans, which I thought was very strange. I don't think that normally happens. You normally do get behind the goal at Rotherham, but I certainly think there's a lot better stadiums at this level, but I certainly don't think it's a bad stadium. They're right at the top of average for me, because there's definitely a lot worse at this level. Next up then, we'll go to Crawley Town. They're going straight in the stinker category, in my opinion. Probably the worst stadium in the entire division. Again, they don't really need much bigger or better than what they've got, but it is quite a rundown stadium. The away end largely is terracing, which is okay if you're just around the corner, but when you've been sat on a minibus for 5-6 hours to get down to Crawley, the last thing that you really want to be doing at that point is standing about in the terracing, really. So it's going in the stinker category, in my opinion, but again, they don't really need much bigger than what they do currently have. Next up then, we will go to Reading FC, and I think this is going to be another stadium straight in that unreal category. Now, it's one that I have never been to, but looking at photos, videos, it's obviously one of the bigger stadiums at this level. Yes, I think it is a bowl for the large part, but I wouldn't say it's soulless. I think they can generate a pretty decent atmosphere there. I think you get quite a large allocation for the away fans as well. And for the standard of a League One stadium, I think it's much better than League One. I do think it is Championship standard, in my opinion. So for me personally, it has to go in that top category. Next up then, we will go to Leyton Orient, and I think I'm going to put them in the average category, probably below Shrewsbury Town. I've been there a couple of times. Don't think I've actually seen us score a goal there yet, though. I think we draw 0-0 and we lost 3-0 the 2 times that I've been to Leyton Orient, but it's certainly not a bad stadium. They've got a nice mix between old-fashioned and a little bit of modern in there as well. What I don't like, though, is the stand opposite the away end, where you kind of got seats that only go up so far and then it goes like flat for like where the boxes are. I just don't like the design of that. Maybe that's just me. You might disagree down in the comment section down below, but there's certainly a lot worse stadiums at this level. I think for what Leyton Orient are as a club, you know, it suits them very nicely, but compared to some of the other stadiums at this level, I do think it is pretty average. Next up then, we're going to go to Bristol Rovers. Now, I've only been there maybe once, potentially twice. I think only once, where we equalised in the 90th minute and then we ended up losing in the 93rd minute in the season that we got relegated. So again, not got many good memories there. The last time that I went was, what, 2019, something like that, when they had about 9 different stands where there was loads of mini tents. I think since then, they have changed it slightly, and obviously I haven't been there since they've done all them developments. Do they still have the terraced away end, which is open and one of the worst places you will go? It's literally like the bottom end of non-league. I'm not too sure. I know they've got a new stand behind the goal opposite to where the main home fans congregate, if that does make sense. So I'm going to stick Bristol Rovers probably in the top of poor, just because of what I remember and what they've now built. I don't think it's bad, but I don't think it's an amazing stadium, really. Again, not one that you really look forward to going to. It suits Bristol Rovers as a club. They don't really need much bigger than what they've got. Am I right in saying they've got plans in place to try and build a new stadium? That could be completely wrong. I might have just completely made that up, but I'm pretty sure I read that somewhere at some point. Who knows? they're going in Paul. If you are enjoying today's video though, don't forget to drop a like on there for me and subscribe to the channel as well if you are new. 150 likes, as I said at the start of today's video, would be massively appreciated. And don't forget to get your rankings in down in the comment section down below. What category do you think your club belongs in, and do you agree with any of my suggestions? Next up then, we're going to go to Wigan Athletic, and it might be a stadium that they very rarely sell many tickets for, but I do think it is a pretty good stadium. I think I've only been there once, maybe twice, but I remember once when we obviously won in the 93rd minute back in 2017. So again, quite a long time since I have been there, but I think it's one of the biggest stadiums for this level. You can see obviously why they have previously played in the Premier League. I wouldn't say it's a championship standard stadium, but you do get quite a big allocation in that away, and very similar to Barnsley from that point of view. But I think Wigan Stadium on the whole, it is pretty good for this level. Next up then, we will go to Exeter City. I'm probably going to put them in Paul, in between Stevenage and Bristol Rovers. Now obviously the away end that you do get in terms of the standing is, I mean, it looks like they've just picked it up out of a builder's yard, really. You know, it's very, very, I think they've tried to go down the modern approach, but for terracing, it's a very interesting approach, we'll say that. I think the rest of the stadium is pretty average. You know, they've got, I think, only half a stand on one side, if to the left of the away end, if memory does serve me correct. They've obviously got the big bank behind the goal, which I think big terracing can work. They can create a decent atmosphere at times, but we're not ranking it on that. In terms of a stadium on the whole, my personal opinion is I do think it is pretty poor for the level. Next up then, we will go to Wycombe Wanderers. I think it's quite similar to Leighton Orient in terms of what I think about it. So I'm going to put them in the average category. Obviously a team that could potentially be back in the Championship come the end of the season. I've been there once. I think we drew 0-0. We scored a legitimate goal, or we had a shot that was going in and they handballed it off the line. Again, in the season that Bradford City were relegated back into League Two. But from what I remember, it was just a very, very bog standard stadium. There's not really much to say about it. It's just kind of one of them, really, isn't it? Next up then, we will go to Stockport County. It's a stadium that I have been to a couple of times. We drew 0-0 and then drew 1-1 in their 2 seasons during their promotion from the National League into League One, obviously throughout their time in League Two. I don't think I need to spell that out for you much more, but I think for what it is as a stadium, I'll probably stick them in the average category. The away end, I think they need to build a new one there. In my opinion, it's very, very run down, I would say, in terms of if you're in the bit behind the goal. I know you can get the seating on the side. I really like the stand that's, you know, behind Stockport's goal. The other two, they're pretty small. I feel like for what Stockport are trying to build as a football club, there is certainly some redevelopments that need to be done around their stadium, but because it's in like the middle of a housing estate, I think it is going to be quite hard for them to build and expand on Edgeley Park in the position that they currently are. But I certainly think there's a lot worse for this level. There's definitely a lot better, so I'm going to stick them in average. Next up then, we will go to Cambridge United, and I think I'm going to stick them in the poor category. I'll probably put them in between Exeter and Bristol Rovers. I've been there the once. We were 1-0 up, I think, with about 5 minutes to go, and obviously we lost 2-1 again in the season. No, it wasn't the season we got relegated down into League Two. It was the first season back in League Two. But it's one of them stadiums where you come out alongside the pitch and then you've got to like go up some steps to actually get into the stand. I'll never be a fan of that. Morecambe is very similar if you've ever been there. But the other 3 stands I think are pretty average. I think there's some terracing behind the goal, if memory does serve me correct. It's certainly not one of the better stadiums at this level, but I definitely would say there are some that are worse, like Mansfield, who've only got 3 stands. Next up then, we will go to Peterborough United, and I think I'm going to put them in the average category. I'll probably put them just above Stockport, in between them and Wycombe Wanderers. Now, their away end, the normal away end that you get on the side, is very, very run down. I think they've still got wooden seats in there, or they're very, very hard. They're certainly not ones that you want to sit on. They've also got these weird steps under the seat, so you kind of like that, if it does make sense. It was really, really weird. I've been there a couple of times. Don't think I've ever seen us win there. I think we've drawn both times. We drew 1-1 in the league and then 2-2 in the FA Cup, if memory does serve me correct. I know sometimes you can get the away and behind the goal as well, which I do think is probably their best stand. It is quite modern. Obviously, you've got the safe standing, I believe now, or they certainly terracing behind the goal for Peterborough. I would certainly say there's better stadiums. There's also worse stadiums. I know they're trying to build a new stadium somewhere, but they're not really getting the help from the council and all that sort of stuff. Peterborough fans, let me know down below. Obviously, you've been on a okay-ish run recently, you know, beating Wrexham, beating Huddersfield as well. Are you still DMAC out at this moment in time? Next up then, we will go to Charlton Athletic, and for me, without a doubt, it is straight in that top category, but it is one of the best in the entire division. I'm a big fan of Charlton Stadium. I've only been there the once. We lost 1-0, again, in our relegation season, but from what I remember, it is a very nice stadium. It's very similar to Valley Parade in the way that it's built, but just a little bit better. You can see again why they've been in the Championship, the Premier League, and all that sort of stuff. I do hope that this can finally be the season where they get back into the Championship. That's the level that they should be at an absolute minimum. One thing I do remember specifically from Charlton away is they had some like yellow lines painted on the floor, and you weren't allowed to stand and drink alcohol there, but you could stand and eat a sausage roll there, which I always thought was very bizarre. It makes like the concourse area very small, but the away end is very nice. It's quite big as well. It's obviously one of the bigger stadiums for this level. I know they've not sold it out for consistently for quite a while, but in my personal opinion, it is one of the best in the entire division. Next up then, we will go to Lincoln City, a stadium that I've not actually visited yet. Them and Reading, I believe, are the only two that I have not done. So it's hard for me to give a full judgment on. Obviously, you can only really then go by pictures, but I think it's probably another one of them where it's going to go in the average category. I'll stick them in between Leyton Orient and Bolton Wanderers. I can't really go into too much detail because obviously I've not physically seen it in person, but from the pictures that I've seen, all that sort of stuff, I do think it is fairly average for this level. 3 teams left to go then, minus Northampton Town. We will come to Northampton Town in a moment. I don't know why I just completely disregarded them then. We will come to Wrexham next. I'm currently doing a Football Manager save over on SHD Games, so make sure to go subscribe to that with obviously Wrexham. So Wrexham for me. Now, I know there's going to be a lot of Americans watching this, and everyone's going to be expecting me to put them in the best stadium in the league just to try and get, you know, interactions and all that sort of stuff. But as always, I'll give my honest, genuine opinion. They're going in the good category. I think there's certainly better stadiums for this level. I don't think it's high end of good either. When I went there, I believe they hadn't built the new stand behind the goal at Wrexham, which was just over a year ago, last February, when we won 1-0. Andy Cook with the last-minute winner in that game. But I certainly think there's a lot better stadiums for this level. There's definitely a lot worse, though. You can see that obviously they are now trying to develop it under the ownership of Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney. But I certainly think there is definitely still some stadiums that are better for this division. The away end, if you go anywhere like the back 10 rows, then you can't really see what's going on the pitch. It's not designed amazingly. You can see why they have obviously been in non-league for such a long period of time, but they are now slowly starting to get round to all them jobs of making the stadium just look a little bit nicer. So I'm going to stick Wrexham in the good category. Let me know what you think down in the comment section down below. Huddersfield Town are up next then. For me, it's either the bottom end of unreal or the top end of good. Huddersfield is another stadium that I've never actually been to, despite obviously living not very far away from it. Bradford City have not played there, so I've had no real reason to go there. I'm not going to go and watch them as a neutral, really, because obviously they're big rivals of Bradford City, so I've not been to 3 stadiums at this level. But again, it's definitely one of the better stadiums in this division. I'll probably put them in the unreal category. If I'm putting Bolton in there, I feel like I've got to put Huddersfield in there. They're very similar in the way that they are designed. I'm not going to spend too much time praising them as a Bradford City fan, but we're going to put them in the unreal category and swiftly move on. 2 stadiums left to rank then. The penultimate stadium we'll go to is obviously Northampton Town. We'll save the biggest club until last, but I'll probably stick them in the poor category. Whereabouts in there? Probably put them at the top end of part. I don't think it's a bad stadium. I certainly think there's stadiums that are better. Maybe they're unlucky not to make it into the bottom end of average, but I've been there twice. We drew 0-0 and won 2-1, obviously with Critchlow scoring in the last minute a couple of seasons ago. But to the right of the away end, they've been doing a lot of construction there over the last couple of seasons. Has that now been completed? Because obviously I've not been there for nearly 2 years now, but from what I remember, the first time round compared to the second time round, where it was around a year's difference, there wasn't really much progress that seemed to have been made. Are they building a new stand there? I'm not really too sure what's going on, but obviously I believe that stand is closed, or was certainly closed the last time that I went there. There's definitely worse stadiums for this level, but there's obviously a lot better in my personal opinion, so I'm going to put Northampton in the poor category. And Birmingham City then is the final team to rank. I believe this is the stadium that I've been to most recently in League One, just a week or 2 ago, as obviously we did play them in the AFL Trophy, putting in a really good display in that game. But Birmingham, for me, I feel like it'd be very rude not to put them as the best stadium in the division, and that's not me just trying to farm likes and comments and all that sort of stuff, because I do genuinely believe it is the best stadium in the entire division. They've played a lot of football in the Premier League. Their large recent history has been in the Championship as well, so just because they've had one season down in League One, it doesn't define them as a football club, obviously, and it is a very, very nice stadium. The away end, despite having to walk very far from the turnstiles to actually get into the stand, it's almost like you got to walk under the entire stadium to then tunnel back up to it. I do think it is a very, very nice stadium. My only critique would be, I think the design of the stadium means that the away end and the home end behind the opposite goal, it's very hard to hear the opposition fans, because we didn't really hear the Birmingham fans there were saying they didn't really hear the Bradford fans, whereas if you look at match day vlogs, for example, from both sides, you can clearly see the Bradford fans were very loud, the Birmingham fans were very loud. So I think that's my only critique I would have on the stadium, but on the whole though, I think it is certainly the best in the entire division. And there we go then, there is my ranking of every League One stadium for the 2024-25 season. Let me know if you agree or disagree down in the comment section down below. What would you change on my ranking? Let me know that sort of stuff down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe as well. 150 likes, as always, would be massively appreciated, and I'll see you very soon for another one.